I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even flinch. I just smiled, reached into my purse, and handed my husband an envelope. That was the moment everything changed. Not for me, I had been ready for months. But for him? That was the moment Marcus realized he had made the worst miscalculation of his life. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Claire, I'm 32 years old. I'm a licensed CPA, and for 7 years, I was married to Marcus Webb, startup founder, charming storyteller, the kind of man who walks into a room and makes everyone feel like the most important person there. I know, because that's exactly how he made me feel when we met. We got married young. I was 25, fresh out of my second tax season, still believing that love was the most important thing you could build a life on. Marcus believed that too, I think. At least in the beginning. For the first 4 years, things were good, not perfect, nothing is but genuinely good. We bought a condo in Austin. We talked about kids in that abstract, someday way that young couples do. We had friends we actually liked, dinners that lasted past midnight, inside jokes that still made me laugh on bad days. Then his startup took off. I want to be careful here, because I don't think success ruined Marcus. I think success revealed him. The version of him that needed to be the smartest person in the room. The version that got uncomfortable when I got a promotion and the conversation at the dinner table shifted to me for once. The version that started coming home later, smelling like someone else's perfume, and then got irritated when I noticed. I noticed everything. I'm an accountant. My entire job is finding the number that doesn't belong. The transaction that breaks the pattern. The line item that makes everything else stop adding up. Marcus stopped adding up around year 5. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because I had learned something important from watching too many women in my family get blindsided, my aunt, my older cousin, even my mother for a brief and painful year when I was 14. I had watched them lose everything in the chaos of being caught off guard. So I made a decision quietly, privately, in the bathroom of our condo one Tuesday night, while Marcus was supposedly working late. I was not going to be caught off guard. I called my friend Dana the next morning. Dana is a family law attorney, and she is terrifyingly good at her job. I told her what I suspected. She told me what to do. And then, for the next 8 months, I did exactly that. I gathered documents. Financial records, account statements, emails that Marcus had been careless enough to send from our shared laptop before he switched to his personal phone. I opened my own account at a different bank. I quietly moved my personal savings money I had earned before the marriage, money that was legally mine, and I kept meticulous records of every dollar, because I knew the day was coming when someone would try to question every dollar. I also kept showing up. To dinners. To his company events. To the birthday party his business partner threw in April, where I laughed at the right moments and refilled glasses and was, by every visible measure, the perfect supportive wife. I was not the perfect supportive wife. I was building a case. The engagement party was my sister Rachel's idea. Rachel is 29, 5 years younger than me, and she got engaged in March to a man named Daniel who genuinely deserves her, which is the highest compliment I know how to give. She wanted a small gathering, our parents, Daniel's parents, a handful of close friends. She wanted it at our parents' house in the hill country, which our mom had spent 3 weeks decorating with string lights and flower arrangements that cost more than my first car. I was happy for her. Genuinely, completely happy for her, in the way that exists separately from everything else going on in your own life. Marcus, of course, had to be there. We were still married, still performing. I remember the morning of the party. I was getting ready in our bathroom, and I looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment. I had chosen my dress carefully emerald green, the kind of color that makes people look twice without knowing why. Not to impress anyone. To hold myself together. To remind myself of who I was before I became someone's wife. Marcus walked in while I was doing my earrings. He looked at me in that way. He had started looking at me, not really seeing me, just confirming I was there, the way you glance at furniture. "You look nice," he said. Flat. Automatic. "Thank you," I said, same tone. We drove to my parents' house in near silence, which had become our normal by then. The radio filled the space between us. He was on his phone for most of the drive. I watched the Texas landscape blur past my window and thought about the envelope in my purse. Dana had prepared it. I had reviewed every page 3 times. It was ready. I didn't know exactly when Marcus was planning to do what he did. I had suspected something was coming. He had been more distant than usual in the days leading up to the party, the kind of distance that isn't sadness, it's rehearsal. But I hadn't known it would be that day, at that moment, in front of everyone I love. The party was beautiful. My mom had outdone herself. Rachel was glowing in a way that I want to hold on to forever, the specific joy of a woman who has found something real and knows it. Daniel kept looking at her like he couldn't believe his luck. I hugged them both, and meant it. We were maybe 2 hours in. Dinner had been cleared, someone had put on music, low and warm. My dad was telling a story about the first time he met Daniel that was getting funnier with every telling. I was standing near the back of the room with a glass of wine, watching my family be happy and letting myself feel that happiness too, even just for a minute. Marcus appeared beside me. "Claire," he said. "I need to say something." I turned to look at him. His jaw was set. His eyes had that particular focused quality I had come to recognize as the version of him that had already decided. "Okay," I said. He didn't take me aside. He didn't lower his voice. He turned slightly toward the room that still had 12 people in it, including my parents, my sister, her fiancé, his parents, and he said it loud enough for the nearest conversations to stop. "I think we both know this marriage isn't working. I want a divorce, Claire. I've already talked to a lawyer." I heard my mother's sharp inhale from across the room. I saw Rachel's hand freeze midair. I saw Daniel's expression go completely still in that way men do when they don't know what they're supposed to do. And then I saw her. I hadn't noticed her when she arrived. She was standing near the kitchen doorway, and I realized in that moment that she had not come as anyone's guest. She had come with Marcus. She was maybe 24, 25. Pretty in the way that requires effort. She was watching me with an expression I can only describe as anticipatory, waiting to see me collapse. I understood then, with complete clarity, that this had been planned. That she was here on purpose. That Marcus had chosen my sister's engagement party, the most important day in my family's recent memory, to do this, and he had brought her here to watch. I felt something move through me. Not rage, not grief. Something colder than both. I reached into my purse. I took out the envelope. I held it out to Marcus, and I said, very calmly, "I know. I've been ready for a while." He stared at it. He didn't take it immediately. He was thrown off, I could tell, by the fact that I wasn't crying, wasn't raising my voice, wasn't doing any of the things he had apparently prepared himself to manage. He took the envelope, he opened it. I watched his face change. The first page was the asset documentation, every account, every property, every investment, organized with the specificity that only an accountant with 8 months of preparation can achieve. Including the 3 accounts I had quietly identified that he had opened without my knowledge. Including the documentation that showed he had transferred money into them from our joint finances in a pattern that had a specific legal term Dana had explained to me. The second page was the legal claim summary Dana had prepared, which outlined, in plain language, the exposure he was looking at if this went to court. The third page was a settlement offer. Reasonable. Fair. The kind of offer someone gets when the other party wants resolution, not war, but has the ammunition for war if necessary. His hand started shaking before he reached the second page. "What is this?" His voice came out wrong, too high, stripped of the control he'd walked in with. "It's what I've been working on," I said, "while you were busy." "Where did you get? How did you?" "I'm an accountant, Marcus, did you forget that?" He looked up at me, and for the first time in probably 2 years, he actually looked at me. Not past me. Not through me. At me. "You knew," he said. "For a long time. Why didn't you?" "Because I wasn't ready yet." The woman by the kitchen doorway had stopped looking anticipatory. She was watching Marcus now, not me, and what she saw was clearly not what she had been expecting. My father stepped forward. He's a quiet man, my dad, a retired engineer who communicates mostly through action, but he put himself between Marcus and the rest of the room and said, in a voice I hadn't heard since I was a teenager making poor decisions, "I think it's time for you to go." Marcus looked around the room. At my mother, who had gone completely expressionless in the way she does when she is most furious. At Rachel, who was gripping Daniel's arm. At Daniel's parents, who were strangers to all of this and looked like they genuinely wished they were somewhere else. He looked back at me. "Claire, you should take the offer," I said. "Dana, my attorney, she's available Monday." He left. She followed him. The door closed behind them. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Then my mom crossed the room in about 4 steps and wrapped her arms around me so tightly I could feel her shaking, and I realized she had been holding that in since the moment he spoke. Rachel was there seconds later. I was holding both of them, and I won't pretend I wasn't crying by then, because I was, but it wasn't the kind of crying I had been afraid of. It wasn't collapse, it was release. 7 years of weight that I had been quietly carrying and quietly managing and quietly refusing to be destroyed by, finally allowed to just be set down. Daniel's father, a man I had met exactly twice before that night, walked over with a fresh glass of wine, placed it on the table next to me without a word, and then returned to his seat. I have thought about that gesture more than once since then. We stayed for another 2 hours. We ate the cake my mom had made. We toasted Rachel and Daniel. We took pictures. The party my sister had spent months looking forward to did not get swallowed by what Marcus had tried to do to it. I want to say that clearly, because this was the thing I was most afraid of, that he would take that night from her. He didn't. We didn't let him. Marcus took the settlement. It took 3 weeks of back and forth between the attorneys, and at one point his lawyer tried to push back on the hidden accounts documentation, and Dana sent a single email that apparently closed that conversation immediately. I don't know exactly what was in it. I didn't ask. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I'm not going to tell you I came out of it without scars, because that would be a lie, and I think you deserve better than a tidy ending. I spent a long time longer than I expected grieving the version of my life I had thought I was building. The kids in the abstract, someday way. The house with more rooms than the condo. The partnership I had believed in. But I also know this, I did not lose myself in it. That's the thing no one really prepares you for when you enter a marriage, not just the work of building something together, but the work of staying, quietly and continuously, yourself. Knowing your own worth, independent of whether someone else is willing to confirm it. Maintaining the part of you that belongs only to you even when someone spends years making you feel like that part is selfish or small. I had done that work. In the background, without recognition, sometimes at real cost. And when the moment came in my parents' house, in front of everyone I loved, while my sister stood in her engagement party and my mother held her breath, I was ready. Not because I had been hard. Not because I hadn't loved him. But because I had never stopped taking care of myself. Rachel got married 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I was her maid of honor. I gave a speech that made our dad cry, which I consider the highest possible measure of a successful wedding speech. I danced until my feet hurt. I drove home alone that night, and I sat in my car in the parking garage for a few minutes before going upstairs. Not because I was sad. Just because I wanted to be still for a moment, to acknowledge something. I had been so afraid, for so long, of this exact version of my life. The one where it didn't work out. The one where I was sitting alone at 32 wondering what came next. And here I was. Sitting alone at 32. And the thing I actually felt was something that took me a moment to name correctly. It was peace. Whatever comes next, and I genuinely don't know what that is, and for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with not knowing. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know that I can walk into the worst moment of my life with an envelope in my purse and a steady voice and enough self-respect to refuse to be anyone's carefully scheduled humiliation. That's mine. No one took it. No one can. If you're somewhere right now where this story feels familiar, not the specific details, but the feeling underneath it, the quiet suspicion that you are slowly being made smaller in a life that was supposed to make you bigger, I just want you to know one thing. You have more time than you think. And more options than you've been allowed to believe. Use the time. Learn your options. And take care of yourself first, especially when no one else is. If this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe to AITA Storytime, new stories every week. I'll see you in the next one.